Irreverent, entertaining, cool. You're listening to LA Talk Radio.
You're listening to Peace Fund Radio with Ethan Dettenmaier and Adrian Paul, right here on LA Talk Radio.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Back in the studio in Los Angeles.
Amazing.
After so many weeks absent. It's nice to be back. How are you doing this morning?
I'm fantastic. It's actually nice to have you back. Never thought I'd say that, but but it is true. You have been missed. Your presence has been missed.
My presence.
Your convictions, your ethics, your goodwill on behalf, and your good work on behalf of children everywhere.
Well, it's funny.
It's very much missed around here.
It was interesting because you traveling in different countries, you see different things, and I was in Italy, I was in Austria, and in Hungary, and England.
Hard to be you.
Tough to be me. But it's interesting watching the schooling there, and right now I'm looking at schooling for my daughter, and it's I went this morning to an early morning school tour for one of these schools, and it's just incredible the amount of applications they have for the spots that are available, and you just really got to think, oh, will I get lucky to actually be able to make that grade? Or it's just wow, education. It's something that is a tough thing to make a choice on when you've got a kid, and especially in Los Angeles. I think Los Angeles and New York, from what I've been looking at, my wife's been looking at, is tougher than anywhere else to actually get a decent education for a fair price. I mean, the amount of money you spend is just unbelievable. When I tell people how much education costs here in Los Angeles compared to Europe, it's staggering.
It's ridiculous, actually.
It is. I mean, you're paying
the selection process, the money.
Yeah, well, that's the other thing. That's the selection process as well. You want to pay them, $12,000 a year or $15,000 a year, and you still have to go through the selection process. Oh, okay. Well,
Yeah.
Well, that's a tough choice. Tough. I don't like being bullied into anything, which I think is what we should talk about today. What do you think?
Well, I'm always down to talk about that.
Bullying, yeah. I mean, we did support a bullying cause earlier in the year, and I think bullying is a. I was actually looking at this morning when I was walking through the school, and it was actually really nice to see kids getting on, and this was an immersion language school, so it was actually very interesting to see different kids getting on from different walks of life, because obviously they're not fluent speakers in one language, they just happen to come from different walks of life trying to learn that particular language. So you've got Koreans and Spanish and American and English and French and whatever, all mixed in one, learning these different languages, or a language, and yet they all get on. They're all playing in the schoolyard. I didn't see any of the bullying, that was exhibited there. But it is a problem because you got and I think it gets harder when you get in the teens. Do you experience that at all? Because I know you've dealt with it kind of with your daughter.
Well, my daughter is 12, so she's not quite a teenager. I'd imagine it continues into your teens, and it could get worse into the teens, depending on the psychology of the people involved. But, my kid reported a bully last year, got in the middle of it, and it was a big deal. It was a big deal, like calling that person out.
Right.
Not going to recount the whole story here, but it was pretty heroic, I thought. And then, she just actually this week reported a kid got bullied, and she felt bad about it. I could see it was really bothering her. She was really kind of thinking, and I knew she was thinking about something, and she didn't want to tell me. And then she doesn't like to tell me things because I get involved.
Kids don't, I mean, it's interesting because I think the one thing parents, I think, make a major mistake on is, and we've discussed this in my family, is that you say to your child, when your child has a problem, they've got to be able to come to you with that problem, whatever it is. Doesn't matter what it is, they've got to be able to talk to you about it, because if they're afraid to talk to you about that problem, they'll be hiding so many things from you that could eventually compound and get a lot worse as the years go by. And you'll suddenly go, why is my kid being moody? Why are they doing bad grades at school? Why is this happening? It's because they have an issue they're afraid to talk to you about, because earlier on you said, stand up for yourself or do this. if they have a problem, tell them. If you've got a problem, just talk to me about it and we can discuss it.
I try to get on her level as often as possible, and it's funny because I do see that approach from a lot of parents. I haven't seen it from you, but I do see it from a lot of parents where they'll say, well, just get over that, just deal with it. Because what's big to us is not necessarily big to them and vice versa. But I always tried to think, first, second, third grade, if it was a big problem to her, to try to get down on that level and be like, well, if this is a big deal to you, then we're going to treat it as such, and we're going to try to handle it appropriately. We're not going to dismiss it. And that's kind of kept the lines of communication open between us. She eventually told me about this situation, but she also is reluctant because she knows my solution to it is, well, let's go talk to this kid, or talk to this kid's parents. And like every other kid, she's like, well, now what's that going to do? What's the next step? What's the repercussions for that? But she will tell me, and she'll, it's interesting because she feels compelled to stand up for everyone on the playground. And that's what I, am both proud of and worry the most about, because she will stand up for the kid she's never even met was pushed down. And we need more people like that, but it has me perplexed at times with a little bit of worry.
It's interesting what you're talking about there, because I was listening this morning. There's a couple of different issues what you're talking about when you're talking about getting down to a kid's level. When you have a small child and you're so much larger than them, taller than them, and you start saying, well, you can do blah, 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 they've got to look up at you. Get down, literally, physically get down to their level and look them in the eye.
Right.
I make sure when I tell my daughter or my son, you can't do this, you can't do that, and they start looking away, I say, no, look me in the face and understand what I'm saying to you. This is what it has to be, and this is how it should be. Because then they're connecting. And this comes to my second point this morning when I was listening to the head teacher in the school talk about how we, with computers, etc., kids are so into having their heads down. And she said, I had one of the teachers come to me and they said, what our kids have now, I notice, is that they're not connecting with me. When they're having a conversation, they're looking away, they're looking down, and it's because we're so used to having the computers, the iPhone and everything, looking down, and we're talking to somebody, but we're not connecting with them.
That's probably part of it, and I think children also are pretty reluctant to make eye contact.
That is true.
Anyway,
because they're looking up. That's the point. And I was looking at the kids today when they had these little ambassadors from each of the different classes who would speak about the class. All of them, it's tough for them. They've got like 20, 30 adults sitting in front of them. And even if it was 2 adults, they're still bigger than them. They're taller than them. They're much louder than them. So for them to be coming down to their level, then feel equal. I mean, think about it from an adult point of view. I'm 6 foot. If I've got a guy that's 7 foot, you're a little intimidated by that person because they're so much bigger than them. Imagine a child that is only 2'3", and you've got a 6 foot adult standing in front of them telling them, whatever it is, the ice cream's green. They're still going to be afraid of it because it's this presence.
Well, I'd be afraid of green ice cream too.
Well, yeah, I would be too. But you understand what I'm talking about. Don't be facetious.
I'm just saying. I'm just trying to relate to the kid because, I think you're right about a lot of that. But like I was saying earlier, I think the thing about it too is parents tend to get dismissive of problems that they feel are small when they are very big in a kid's world.
Correct.
And I think that, you should give your kid credit and not attach size to their issues, but just tell them this is how you handle this or this is how I would handle this. And give them a solution, but don't really be dismissive of what they are coming to you with. Because I think when you do that, when a kid's in 1st, 2nd, 3rd, or even 6th grade, as my daughter is now, that, when that happens, that they start to think, well, my dad doesn't even get me. He's just going to tell me to get over it. He doesn't even understand this is a problem, so I'm not even going to talk to him about it. And I've always told her, you can tell me what my problems are. And to her credit, she still does. I don't know if that'll continue. I hope it does. But, it's like all I can do is, it's funny because technology changes. And this is the point where I think everyone kind of disassociates themselves from their parents. Technology changes, and parents don't always get the new technology. My parents didn't get the technological road we were on. But people and their habits never change. And that's where the wisdom of being older comes in. It's like people don't change. Technology does. The deception is that my dad doesn't know how to turn on a laptop, which is true in my house. She thinks that, at times he doesn't get anything. He doesn't know how to do any of this. The truth is I haven't learned the technology. But people are still consistently the same in terms of how they interact and what their motivations or lack of motive could be at times. And I think that's what's important to convey to a kid. It's like, Adrian, you and I, it's like your parents knew a lot, and we found out how right they were about things when we were kids. They seemed my parents seemed somewhat detached and out of touch. It was amazing how much they were right about. And it was because they were right about people.
I mean, how many times do you say, well, your parents know best? Yeah. But in a sense, they don't, but they do. Because they've been through it. I mean, I watched my daughter, and I know my son is going to do the same thing. And as they grow up, they're going to do the same. I'm sure many of you out there...
Amazing kids, by the way.
Well, thank you. But, I mean, the thing is that I think what will happen, and I'm sure all of you, those of you out there that do have kids... Have the kids that look up and go, "Oh, you don't know you don't understand. You don't get it. You're not my age." I was once, and I did get it, and I do understand it. We do get detached from that. So,
I am constantly telling stories about when I was in the 6th grade. Try to be relevant in her world.
Okay, tell me something, because I always get this confused, because coming from England, we had a slightly different grading system. Yeah. What is your grade here? At 6 years old, what grade are you in? Is it kindergarten or is it first grade?
My daughter turned 6. She started kindergarten at 5, turned 6 during it.
So kindergarten's 5 to 6?
Yeah, roughly.
So then by the time you're 5th grade, you're what, like by about 10, 11, 11?
My kid just turned 12. She's in the 6th grade. She turned 12 this
12
month.
is 6th grade, okay.
So, yeah, you're 11 to 12 in the 6th, 10 to 11 roughly.
Because we don't have grades like that in Europe. You don't. Well, in England, you never used to have them quite like that. They were slightly different.
What do you have?
Just class, as we were just in the first form. We used to call them forms. First, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth forms. Our first form was actually when was grammar school. Grammar schools in England now are basically secondary schools or your middle school or your grades, because we, age 10 to 11 was our first form. So that was basically 5th grade here. Right? So our second form was when we were 12, 11, 12. We got all the way up to 6th form, which is between 16 to 18 years old. So, I mean, it changes a little bit. So it's always very confusing to me how that worked.
It's confusing to me. So if it's confusing to you...
It's confusing. Well, no, your grading system, everybody says it's 6th grade or middle school or, I'm like, okay, what's middle school? That's 13 to 15, right?
No, middle school is roughly 12 to 13. 12, 13.
12, 13.
14 for some. I was 14 in high school.
High school?
Freshman.
Okay.
So, it's, give or take. It's not exact.
Well, that's the age where we were just talking about this morning about, bullying. It really kind of, I think the majority of bullying really starts around that age, around middle school. And upwards, because it basically says it affects millions of kids. And two of the main reasons people are bullied, this is from what they're looking at, is because of appearance and social status. Now, it's interesting because in England, it was all about social stature. You had the upper class, the middle class, and the lower class. And you really told that by the way somebody spoke. Bullies, as it says here, pick on the people they think don't fit in. Maybe because they know how they look, how they act. Example, kids who are shy and withdrawn. Their race, their religion, or because they might be gay or lesbian, or any of those factors. And it always interesting to me when kids have to move schools. When you move school, my wife was like, she said, when I moved school, I was always the one out of favour because everybody had their cliques already. And when you come in, you're the one that's out of favour. You're the what's it called, the loner sort of thing. So you're not in it. So therefore, you're more of a target to actually be bullied.
Yeah, my kid's got a kid in her school who just started this week because he was at the elementary school down the street. Supposedly he had to leave because he was threatened.
Really?
That's the story on the schoolyard.
Well, he was threatened at your child's school?
No, he's now at my child's school, but he was at the school up the street. And
Now, is that threatened physically, psychologically?
I don't know the details, and I wouldn't count on a 6th grader to give it to me straight, to be honest with you. But just the thought of that, actually, has me perplexed, because if things get so bad that from one principal to another, you're going to another school, at what point do you take on the leadership role of your school, walk into that classroom and say, this is what's going to happen from here on out, or you are all doomed? I mean, I wish I could be a principal for a day. Because there's certain things. So there's
Sergeant Major Ethan.
It was actually Staff Sergeant Barnes when I was at Warner Brothers. Okay. But I mean, at some point, and I hate to, I don't want to convince people that my methodology is always to get in someone's face. But the truth of it is at that point, you got to walk in there and say, you are all, as a group, in deep. Excuse my language. There will be an edit there. But I mean, I take this very personally because I'm a kid. So,
well, the interesting thing, bullying does come in different ways. It comes, there's psychological.
But I mean, what do you
control.
think of that, and how would you handle that?
How do you handle it? I mean, the interesting thing is, I think it's a tough call in a sense because when you threaten kids, I mean, you're using the same tactic as what you're telling them not to do.
I don't believe that is the same tactic because I think personally, bullying, targeting someone and abusing them just to boost your self-esteem, and then telling everyone as a group that this behavior is going to stop, or you'll be collectively punished.
Well, there's something else. There's a difference there in the way you handle that. I mean, again, my way of handling something is not the way my wife handles it. I'm much more the Staff Sergeant Barnes. I'm like, you're going to get over there, I'm going to spank your bottom, whatever it is. My wife's technique, and there are a lot of different ways, to do things, and a lot of them is to sit them down. Look, the consequences of this are, if you don't do collectively as a group, if you see somebody that is being bullied, if you know somebody that's being bullied, and you don't report it, then something will be taken away from you. Rather than saying, well, you're all going to be in deep trouble, or you'll be expelled, or whatever. There's a certain threat there that doesn't work. What's been working with my son? My son is going through he's 2.5, but he's more like 3.5, the way he does things. But he's going through that stage of, he wants to let it out wherever we are.
Right.
So screaming in a restaurant does not work for me. And my wife wants to talk to him. My technique just recently has been, and it actually is a proven method, is literally picking him up and walking him outside and saying, okay, you got a choice. Do you want to go outside? Or, because screaming over there doesn't work. We can go back and you can stop screaming, or I can leave you outside. Here's your choice. And I tell you, if it takes me about 10 seconds, because he understands it takes me about 10 seconds for him to go, all right, I'll go back and I'll stop screaming. So the point is that instead of going, I'm going to beat you if you do this, the option is, what is your option? Here's your option. Here's your two options. If you accept this behavior, then basically, which is not acceptable in our lives, that is, I'm not going to beat you for it.
You should not accept the behavior. I agree with that.
No, you can't accept it.
The methodology you use, I think, is a good one to fix it.
That's what I'm talking about.
But it's not much different than what I'm saying. I mean, I'm not convincing you walk into a 6th grade class and said, I'm going to beat you all into the ground. Well, I mean, I know that's the temptation.
Well, but I mean, the threat is there in a sense. And again, this goes back to what I was talking about before, about having your kids be comfortable enough to come to you with a problem. So if your kids are being bullied, if they're talking about, okay, my kid is actually being bullied today. I'm a kid, I'm being bullied. If I go to somebody that's coming into class saying, you guys did, I might even be scared to go to that person and tell them that it's because they're a scary person. Instead of coming down to my level and saying, look, I'd like you to explain this to me and tell me what's happening because, it's a better way to deal with it. There are different issues of way to handle it. Then you're more on their level rather than being above them, telling them this is how you should do it.
If you are the principal of an elementary school, which is 1st to 6th grade roughly, kids up to 12 roughly, and somebody comes to you and says, I'm being bullied, what steps would you recommend are taken?
To a child that is being bullied?
Yeah.
Well, first of all, you have to know what the consequences of them are. Is it a physical bullying? Is it a psychological bullying? What type of bullying is it? Because they do fall into different categories. I mean, verbal bullying, it can also involve cyberbullying.
But would you punish it differently? I mean, it's...
No, the punishment is not... Again, the punishment, first of all, you have to know who it's coming from and then deal with the person that's doing it.
Right.
And how do you deal with the person that's doing it is really the issue. I mean, do you go to their parents? Do their parents care? Because this is really where it comes from. I mean, again, it could be something the kid's going at home. A lot of the times when we've spoken about bullying on this show before, about how a lot of the times the bully is actually being bullied by their parents or by somebody out of the school.
So you can assume that taking it to the parents is probably not going to be your solution, I would say.
Well, it could.
It could, but most likely won't be.
It could be, but addressing, you have to address it. And have to address it saying your child is bullying this thing because we have it. We've talked to the child. You've got to talk to the child that's being bullied. You've got to talk to the bully. And then you've got to talk to the people around them to see how you fix that. Why is a bully bullying? Is it because they feel stronger? Is it because...
Yeah, I mean, I think it all comes out of low self-esteem personally. And, poor habitat, so to speak. But, I mean, let's say you find out who's bullying them, and the parents clearly are disinterested, as I think most parents are, because they're detached. And let's say you have to take steps on your school grounds on your property to bring it to a stop. What do you do?
On your school grounds, you're talking
Yeah.
about. Well, you have to address the child. You have to first. I mean, either there could be a way of actually saying, okay, this person who you're bullying, I'm going to put them to protectors. These protectors will tell me whether you're bullying them or not. You're not, and what does it do? I mean, what type of bullying is it? Tattletaling a lot of the time is not a cool thing. My daughter goes, Royce, he's done this. And
That
he's done
is the big argument a lot of
here's
kids
the
have. You're right.
It's tattletaling. I'm tattletaling on that, but it's a question of there's a difference between, oh look, he's gone and done this, to somebody being physically or mentally hurt. It's a different. There's a level. Again, when you're dealing with 6th graders or 5th graders or actually a little bit older than that, and you're dealing with bullies, then how do you deal with it? Do they understand what the level of difference is between the two? I don't know the answer to that. I mean, that's, again, I'm not a... we should actually have some... We should get a
6th grader in here.
We should get a 6th grader in here who's been bullied, and we should also get a psychologist on the phone. If anybody out there is actually an expert in this or has some sort of...
Well, what we need is a school psychologist for kids.
There you go.
You know, we don't need a bunch of phone calls from people who have the PhD and want to tell us exactly what we should think. I think we should get someone who's in the trenches with this personally.
Actually, do we have John Beerley on the line right now?
Well, speaking of PhDs.
PhD.
Good morning, gentlemen. How are you?
Personal health discipline.
But there he is, John Beerley.
Yes. Welcome back to the studio, Adrian. I've been enjoying the return of the classic Ethan-Adrian banter this morning. It's good. It's good.
I mean, I think we're both in agreement. I mean, it's personally, you know, just a moment ago, he said he'd assign the victim of bullying to protectors, and I can't say that's right or wrong. I don't know. I don't live in that world. But my personal thing is to bring the guy in front of you and have it out with him in a way that he straightens him out.
There's another way of doing it also. You have to straighten the person out. First of all, you have to understand why they're bullying. What are you doing it? If he's a real yob, you have to understand where it's coming from at home, because it really comes from exterior. It doesn't come from anywhere else.
You're absolutely right about that. The problem with that, I think, is that I don't think you're going to be able to fix a household's method. You know, as a principal of a school, I don't think you're going to be able to bring bullying to the attention of the parents and have them suddenly change.
Correct, but it has to be addressed, and therefore the other thing is, the other way of possibly utilizing this is saying to the class, assign a couple of people, and you don't tell anybody who they are. You don't tell anybody who they are, for them to be the class monitor. If they see anything like that, they can report it. Or you rotate people throughout the class. So if anybody is doing it, they have no idea who it is that's actually reporting that particular incident.
I think you take a meeting with the parents, you write a letter and say this happened, and if it happens again, we're going to just have to take measures in our own hands as long as this kid's on school property to prevent it.
Well, there is that. I mean, obviously, you do have to take measures to actually stop bullying. And again, remember, bullying doesn't necessarily only work in the confines of a school. You're talking about cyberbullying as well. That's the internet. What are you laughing about?
I'm laughing. I just had this discussion with the doctor, my friend Chris, who's the doctor for the Disneyland Resort, about bullying, a situation they actually had at the park that was very similar to this. And I had a solution for him that I thought, I just was
okay. I want to hear this. I mean, this is going to be an Ethan solution, isn't it?
You know, it's not necessarily. It's kind of. I don't know that I even want to say it on the radio, but apparently, I'll keep it short. Disneyland has had problems with people who wear these pseudo Mickey, Donald biker patches into the park, and have had, because of it and because of their numbers, a gang-like mentality at times, with clearly weaker people that go through the park. Now, I haven't encountered this, I haven't seen this, but it's a problem enough that now that we're talking about it on the radio, that their PR department's trying to keep a lid on it. And so we were having a conversation about solutions to that kind of thing, and I had a solution for it. That's all. And I just was laughing because it was kind of...
Okay, but the laughing is obviously whatever your solution was,
well,
which
my
is going to be very
I
interesting.
should warn people, my solutions
it's
are
going to
not
be drastic.
For everybody.
Exactly, that's my point.
But, it seemed to me, honestly, like the bullying was very similar to the bullying we're talking about, which is it's bullying out of self-esteem. It's bullying who suddenly people who aren't probably like that really, but in the right environment and numbers, they become like that. It's almost like I was discussing the psychological aspects of it as you put on this mock biker patch and suddenly you feel, because there's 10 or 12 of you dressing in unison, which is what we used to laugh at with Boys to Men, the group, because they all dress alike, that suddenly there's this mentality that takes over. That was my theory, that they're probably not really as tough. I mean, let's be honest. It's not a tough guy's thing to put a Donald Duck patch on your back and walk around and bully people. I think it's something that you kind of rise up to. It's just not tough to begin with. And my solution was to ring like you're going to handle it.
Okay, we'll leave that alone. Whatever that was, I'm not really going to address it.
My
Okay,
solution was to pay some real tough guys to put an end to it immediately.
Well, there is that. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of kids that actually
in the
go through
kindest possible way.
In the kindest possible, yes. But I mean, you do have a lot of. There are programs out there where they actually take troubled teenagers or troubled kids into the prison system and have literally prison inmates talk to them about why they think
I think that's a great idea.
That is a program. There are several programs. We see those on TV.
And that's much better than my idea, honestly.
I mean, in a sense. Okay, here's a couple of things. Myth or fact? I'm going to ask these questions and we'll reply them afterwards so you guys can think about this. Cyberbullying. Can it only affect someone if they are online and have an account too? That's a question. Don't answer the question. Is that a myth or is that a fact? Second one, people are born bullies. Is that a myth or a fact? Another one, if I tell someone, it will just make it worse.
What was the first one again?
First one was
cyberbullying.
Cyberbullying can only affect them if they're online or if they have an account too.
I would say probably not. I think it could affect you even if you don't have an account.
Okay, well,
that's my guess.
Hold on a second.
Beerley's
I'm
usually right
I'm going
about
to put
this.
I'm going to put these out there. People who bully are insecure and have low self-esteem.
No, I think we all agree on that.
Okay, hold on a second. We'll go through that. And the other one, if a child or a youth denies being bullied, there probably isn't a problem. Okay, I think some of these are self-explanatory. But we'll talk about these in a second because I just want to give some other facts out here right now while we're talking about these things. 19.6% of high school students in the US report being bullied at school in the past year. That's nearly 20% of all high school students. 14.8% reported being bullied online. Each day, 160,000 students miss school for fear of being bullied.
Oh, that's awful. That's way too high. That's insane.
It's insane. Just because they're being bullied. And they probably haven't told anybody that they are being bullied. 43% of kids fear harassment in the bathroom at school. 100,000 students carry a gun to school.
That's ridiculous.
100,000 students carry a gun to school.
That is begging for a tragedy to happen.
Absolutely.
The average bullying episode lasts only 37 seconds. Teachers notice or intervene in only 1 in 25 incidents.
See, I find that one surprising because I'm surprised that sometimes the incidents last that long. I mean, sometimes it can be one physical action, one word even can be enough to do damage. That's,
but if you call somebody an idiot or you call somebody like ugly, I mean, yes, it does damage, but it's not a constant. But if you're saying
True.
You're ugly, you're stupid, you haven't got this, you got that, you've got your clothes are not like this, you look different, that's a real bullying issue because you're really attacking somebody. A lot of the time, and we as humans, a lot of the time we don't respond, we react, and we react out of fear, we react which creates anger, and then we say things that come out of our mouths that we can't take back. So in reality, that's one way of looking at it. And John, you're right, that's a discussion. But when you're physically sitting there for 30 seconds, and then you remember this is average, so we're talking about average of 37 seconds, that means it's at least a minute or a half, either they're being physically bullied or mentally or verbally bullied for a period of time. Now, that is a bullying situation because it's premeditated in a sense and it goes on. It doesn't stop. There's a feeling of power about it. Now, there's another thing. Researchers note that 6th grade is the worst year for bullying. Just so that you mentioned that, Ethan. 6th grade.
Why is that?
I have no idea. I want to find out about that. Somebody should mention that. Why is 6th grade the worst year for bullying? An estimated 40 to 75% of bullying in schools takes place during breaks, such as during recess, at lunchtime, in hallways, or in the restrooms.
Yeah.
These are the times in which a target most likely needs to seek refuge and which the school needs to be most alert. This is the most important bullying factor. Now listen to this. You said a minute ago, how would you handle those situations? Now, dealing with schools, when you're dealing with people coming into schools and employing people, it costs money for that school. Schools these days don't have the money for art programs, for music programs, for stuff like that.
True, that's a great tragedy.
So how do you then control those recess areas, those times when lunchtime and hallways and bathrooms the kids have to go to? How do you control those times? Is it installing cameras? in the schools?
No.
Is it having monitors police the hallways?
Well, my kid's school has monitors. I think that's a lot more affordable than cameras. You're going to have to hire a monitor to watch the cameras.
Well, you can unless you actually.
I don't think.
Well, it could be somebody should come up with an idea where you actually put a camera into a hallway or a bathroom, and it's triggered by movement in that hallway or at a time.
I'm against things like cameras, metal detectors, things of that nature. I'm trying to. I would prefer to take a route of building positive psychology out and looking for solutions that way, and try to combat bullying by raising people's self-esteem on campus through various methods and programs, and trying to do things like that while encouraging people to work together and not. Oh, you're taking my photo, fantastic.
I might even tweet it out while you're talking about this.
Yeah. So should I point? You want like something dramatic? You want the
No, I
Spielberg
want you to
point?
just keep talking what you're doing.
All right. So, but I mean, I think there's different. I'd like to get away from, once you start, the Batman philosophy to know the Morgan Freeman principle movie. The one I'm talking about, where he walked around the real life story of the guy who walked around with a baseball bat, et cetera, and cleaned up the school in New York.
Yes, I remember that. Yeah.
Before you get to that, once you get to that point, it's hard to backtrack from that. And I like to keep a school and not a compound, if that makes sense.
Right.
And that was the thing after Sandy Hook that was going on at our school. A lot of people are like, we need higher fences. And, I'm like, a fence isn't going to keep anyone out anyway.
That's right.
Why are we going to make everyone feel like they're prisoned in? It's not going to protect you. But the reality was, I feel like there's got to be a way to start with the students you have and understand the psychological aspects of every kid is different, and try to build it out. Try to be positive, but also make it very clear that there are repercussions for bullying on campus that no one's going to be comfortable with.
Well, again, let's just go back for a second when I was talking about cyberbullying. Your answer was cyberbullying can only affect someone if they are online or have an account too. That is not true. We often hear of pages and fake accounts being created without person's permission or knowledge. It's the sort of this is cyberbullying which is on the increase, and it's just as serious as any other form of bullying. Here's the other one. People are born bullies. No, you're not born a bully. God,
No, you're not born a bully.
how can you be born a bully? No, it's not. Basically, it's a learned behavior, and these behaviors can be changed. So this is why I think it's important to know.
Do you know this case that happened up in Michigan, right?
Which one?
The one that happened just this week. It kind of made the news about the racial bullying via Snapchat. Beerly knows, of course, because he's an encyclopedia of knowledge.
Billy, are you there?
But the case up in
they're actually trying to add it into the law. It was such a big deal. They're trying to get something cyberbullying added into Michigan law.
It should be into the law. There makes no difference what technique you use to bully someone. I mean, if I bully you through the postal system, I should be just as guilty as whether I bully you verbally
Correct.
in a room. It's ridiculous to think the methodology. They should be.
Yeah. So the governor of Michigan actually ended up signing cyberbullying to be an official type of prohibited bullying under Michigan law.
I like that, Governor. Kind of.
Governor Beerly, thank you. You've just been voted in.
He should be governor, actually. He should be governor of Indiana. He should be governor of the office building he reports from.
Here's another one that I just mentioned. Is this a myth? If I tell someone, it would just make it worse. The fact is, the research shows.
Yes and no. Sometimes.
Well,
yes, no.
yes, in the sense that yes. I mean, there's always the There's always the threat of a retaliation, I suppose. But if you don't tell somebody, then it's definitely not going to stop.
My kid has that dilemma, too. She doesn't like to tell me everything because she's afraid I'll turn the missile key on her. So the reality is...
The missile key on her? What exactly is the missile key?
A lot of times she feels like... My answer to a lot of this, quite honestly, is not to let it go.
True.
So she knows that. So a lot of times she won't tell me. But when she does tell me, I try to actually have a diplomatic Gandhi-like solution versus another solution of, maybe more dramatic action immediately. So I try to, I try to find a more philosophical. Look, the show's not all about my methods. I'm going to get a bunch of tweets criticizing my parenting after this.
No. I mean, but again, this is what we're talking about this morning. We have to discuss what are the methods. I mean, what is the solution? Everybody's going to have different solutions.
I think well, everyone is going to have different solutions, but
here's another the answer to what I just said, if I tell someone it would just make it worse, research actually shows that bullying will stop.
The bully does stop
when
most of the
adults in
time.
authority and peers get involved.
Yeah.
So,
Bullying goes up. You know what I mean? So
what do you mean? No, what do you mean when it goes up?
Bullying works its way up a food chain until it stops, so to speak. So if
Right.
if your kid is being bullied by someone in school and you go in there and say, guess what, this ends right now, that kid will probably never do it again because he just did what he fears the most. And what's made him a bully in the first place is the idea that this will bring repercussions on him. And I do think most of them stop.
They
They don't change, but they stop.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Well, again, it doesn't address the initial issue that we're talking about. Is why they're doing it. But again, the other portion is people who bully are insecure. Is this a myth or is this a fact?
That's a
people
fact.
who bully are insecure and have low self-esteem.
That's a fact.
No, you're wrong. Many
can't
people,
be.
many people who bully are popular and have average or better than average self-esteem. They often take pride in aggressive behavior and control over people they bully.
The idea that they may be popular because they're dangerous on the schoolyard, I admit that exists, but I can't believe that they all have good self-esteem and that's, they're...
Yeah, and I think that if they were happy and fulfilled people, they would be looking for other outlets for their energy rather than trying to bring other people down.
Correct.
So I think it's kind of a double-edged.
Well, what you're
sword
looking
there.
at, they talk about some people who bully may actually have poor social skills and experience anxiety or depression. And what bullying does, it allows them to gain social status because it puts them in the... It hides their other insecurities.
My final answer on that is yes, you're probably right.
Wow.
Well, don't act like it's
Myth.
some sort
No,
of
I'm just
religious
saying-
conclusion.
No,
I mean, you're right a lot of the times, in my opinion.
No, I'm not right. I get the facts by Bev Shahara. A lot of the facts given there. And I just
Well,
put
we
my
have to
opinion
give her
on it.
credit as well, but I mean, you're
Absolutely.
acting like I never agree with you. And that's not the case.
All right, okay, let's do the last myth we talked about. If a child or a youth denies being bullied, there probably isn't a problem. If your child says to me, "No, I'm not being bullied," is there a problem or is there not?
Yeah, no, it's a problem. There's probably a problem.
Yeah, because if you suspect that a child is being bullied, you're probably right.
I mean, kids are like everyone else in this life. It's not what they say; it's how they act.
Well, again, absolutely, and you're right because you, as a parent, know your child much better than anybody else. And in reality, as I said before, when I was talking before about how a child observes an adult or somebody higher in authority, if they believe that they're not going to look up to what that person's view is, then they're acting out of shame and fear, and they're saying, no, everything's right because I'm as tough as you told me I should be. Right? So in other words, you understand what I'm saying? They're afraid to say to you, I'm being bullied at school because you might consider that being weak.
No, I don't.
I'm not talking about you in particular. I'm talking about
well, you're pointing
the
at me,
adult.
so I feel like I'm being
Well,
singled
no,
out
I'm
for
talking
this.
about you in general.
No. I mean, I would think you're right about that. Yeah, that's not how I handle it. I mean, I don't think anyone's weak for being bullied. I think that's just the way things are going.
No, but what I'm addressing is going back to your original statement about going in and saying, and we were talking about getting down to a kid's level, about conversing with a child, how you look at a child eye to eye rather than standing above them and telling them how it is, because by telling them how it is, you're now an authority figure, and by putting up that barrier and saying, look, this is how I see it, if that child believes that they're not behaving as how you see it, they might not say anything to you out of shame and fear that they're not living up to your expectations.
Very much the possibility, I think, in many households. Personally, I really dread the day that children need to feel they have to be tough to just sort of go day to day in their environment. That everything is going to be a challenge to toughness and psychological toughness and survival in that method. I really dread that day. I really think kids should be able to go to school, like what they like, be who they want to be, and that's the way it should be. I never really tell my kid, you got to be tougher than this and you got to stand up. There are psychological toughness aspects to the personality I try to preach, but it's not like you have to go there and everything could be a point of conflict. I don't want her to live like me, where, we can go to DEFCON 1 at any given moment.
Right.
There's no rewards in that for a young lady.
Well, I'm just going to mention a couple of things here because I think this is a very big problem. I mean, I think talking about it is important. And John, I'm going to bring you to the hero of the week very quickly in a second, but there are no federal anti-bullying laws, although 49 states have anti-bullying legislation. Bullying is not illegal. Interesting, that, isn't it? It causes huge damage. in some cases, when bullying is based on race, colour, national origin, sex, disability, or religion, bullying overlaps with harassment, and schools are legally obligated to address it. But unless it doesn't fall into those categories, they don't. John, let's just. I want you to bring us the hero of the week, because we are running out of time. I can't believe how quickly we've gotten out of this.
The show needs to be extended.
Yeah, I know. We might do that.
We are. We know, definitely.
So, John, bring us a hero of the week this week, because I know you've got a good one, and then there's a couple of other things we can chat about.
Yeah, well, we've been lucky enough to feature lots of incredible kids in the past on the show who have had different anti-bullying projects. I'm very quickly going to mention a couple of those. Lauren and Victoria Coaxum of the Think Before You Type campaign, which they say has devoted its energy to passionately fighting to create a safer internet and has been working to encourage and empower young people worldwide. We dare you to join us in positively impacting others. You can do that by visiting TBYT Inc. TBYTINC.com. We had Matthew Kaplan from the B1 Project, 1ONE, which is short for Open to New Experiences. Matthew has programs in schools where he sits kids down and tries to get to the root of not only why kids are bullied, but why the bullies are trying to do the bullying, and trying to get these kids on the same page to realize that words and actions are powerful, and that by choosing to wield the power in the correct way, we can build each other up rather than tearing each other down. Very great program that the Peace Fund actually was able to support. And then it's just so many good ones here. I know that we're short on time. We have let's see here, Dalton Cyr, who is CYR, who has been in the studio several times, DaltonCyr.com, who does lots of anti-bullying concerts. Breaking 27, which is a band who came in and performed their song about anti-bullying. Sana Jivani, who was 12 years old when she developed alopecia. Her hair falls out. And rather than the kids in her class being supportive, they began making fun of her for her hair falling out and left a letter in her locker entitled 50 Ways to Kill Yourself. All for the crime of having been diagnosed with a legitimate medical condition. So rather than succumbing to what the bullies had said to her, she decides, okay, I'm not going to wear my wig. I'm just going to show up to school as I am and be happy as I am. And when she did that, other kids in the class who were going through their own bullying come up to her and say, wow, you really inspired me to be myself. So she started something called International Natural Day, which you can read about on internationalnaturalday.com, which is celebrated in 28 countries on February 13th, which she chose because she says you can't truly love others until you truly love yourself. And that brings us to our brand new... I'm sorry?
I said that takes a huge amount of guts.
It does. It absolutely does. It absolutely does. We had Carrie Keegan as a celebrity guest who came on the show and talked about her experiences with bullying. Cass Anvar, a longtime friend of Peace Fund Radio, who came on the show and talked about his experiences. And, we talked about Ethan having the Christmas breakfast for homeless children. We've talked about the work that his daughter, Sean, has done. We also need to mention that his wife, Loda, organized a GLAD anti-bullying campaign. So it runs in the family with Ethan. So awesome work from your family, sir.
And
that very quickly brings us to our brand new hero of the week, Valerie Weisler, a 17-year-old from New York. Valerie was bullied for being shy when she was a freshman in high school. And she was bullied so much that she became very aware of the plight facing other children like her who had been bullied. So she started inviting them to sit at her table with her. So she would talk to these kids who had been bullied for various reasons, figure out what it was that brought them together, and begin to realize that, hey, we can take the things that make us special and use those things to help others. So she created the Validation Project, which you can read about at thevalidationproject.com. She says, we live in a world that tells you to hold on to your dreams until you're 18, that you have to wait to make a difference. There are kids like me all around, and we are proof that those rules are BS. She also says that since I was little, I've been making friends with the odd ones out, and I've been bullied for it. I'm thankful for the tormentors, because facing them each day is what gave me the guts to do what I do. Because I have lived in the moment where validation was so crucial to me, I know that there are people out there that need it now. Your identity should be a celebration, not a confession. And the things that she has done are incredible. Through the Validation Project, she has organized sports teams for children with special needs. They send cards and care packages to victims of domestic violence. They have raised $25,000 worth of goods and services collected and donated to people in need. They collect cell phones, tablets, and other electronic devices to send around the world to places like Uganda to families who need those items for education and communication but can't afford them. And she says, Valerie also says, what is your big idea? What wakes you up in the morning? How do you want to make your mark through health, wellness, education, literacy, hunger, poverty? Because you know the beauty of life not being a movie, you get to write your own script. And she has written her own script to the tune of chapters in 100 countries that affect 5,000 teens who are members of this group, 2,000 adult mentors, in 900 chapters around the world. Valerie Weisler, for the incredible work that you've done, for taking your own bullying experiences and turning them into something that has inspired children around the world. You are our latest Peace Fund Radio hero of the week.
Brilliant.
Yeah. You know what I'm going to do, Ethan?
What's that?
I'm going to extend this show to next week as well.
You should.
I think what we should do is there's so much we can talk about this topic.
I want to write a handbook on it.
I think we should. What I'd like to do is if any of you out there are listening and you want to actually come on the show, I want to. You can contact us through the website, through Peace Fund Radio on our Facebook or our.
Stories with Solutions.
Stories with Solutions, yes.
Yeah. Facebook.com, Peace Fund Radio, Twitter.com, Peace Fund Radio. We are listening.
There's a couple of people I actually might want to reach out to that I want to come on. We'll discuss what organizations are out there regarding bullying. It's a two-part. This will be the first Peace Fund Radio two-part episode that we'll have ever done.
I love it.
Let's change it up a little bit. But I
think actually, we could probably get Valerie to call in. She was going to call in today.
Great.
But she had a test.
Let's do it.
And I think that's amazing that, she can't call in because she has a test, and yet she has, it's just awesome. These kids, you think, well, they're still in high school. You think of all the things she's done. She's affected thousands and thousands and thousands of kids, but she's still in high school, which I think is just absolutely awesome. So, Valerie, good luck on your test. We hope we can have you next week.
Right. Yeah, Valerie, hopefully we'll talk to you next week. I think it is important to actually have a lot of these discussions because some of you out there might there are a lot of different websites. I remember probably about 2 years ago when we were doing a lot of Peace Fund stuff, hearing about a young boy in England who had been bullied, and there was no solutions to it. He wasn't sure, so he got online and he's created a website that basically talked about bullying. It talked about what was happening to him, and he started getting other kids talking back again. Apparently now the website's got over 2 million kids talking about the solutions they had, their own experiences, how it was handled and how these bullies were dealt with or how they were stopped and how to stop bullying. Because, again, bullying is, as we said, it's verbal, it's cyber bullying, and it's also physical or sexual. So, there are different ways that bullying does occur, and there are ways to stop it. And so next week, tune in because we're going to be discussing all those things because we've got literally about 2 or 3 minutes left to do that. So we're going to do that next week, and hopefully we'll hear from Valerie as well. John, do you have anything else for us in the meantime? Because we've got a couple of other announcements we're going to make here.
Just as always, you can follow Ethan at Combat Radio, Adrian at AdrianPaul1, and like us and follow us on Facebook and Twitter at The Peace Fund and Peace Fund Radio. Check us out at thepeacefund.org.
And I'm going to give a shameless shout out. On my Facebook page right now, I started a video of guess where I am, if you can guess the street I'm on. So I'm going to continue that. It's a video we're putting out all the time now. We're going to start putting a lot more stuff on Adrian Paul Official on the Facebook site, where you can actually guess where I am. And what I'll do, when we get the correct answers, we'll choose one of the correct answers, and you will have the opportunity to ask me any question you want, and I'll answer it on a video on my Facebook page. So we might even do that with the Peace Fund Radio as well. We might be able to, if you've got questions, put them on a video, send them to us, and we'll answer them to you either on air or in a video on the actual site itself.
Very cool.
I think also there's a couple of shout-outs I want to give in the meantime. There's obviously Bev Shahara, who does this a lot for us. All the people that have supported us recently. Peace Fund Radio obviously works from a lot of donations from people that are listening to our supporters. We have some great people that have donated to the Peace Fund this year. Or last year, and we hope we'll be able to continue that. Our January show, Ethan, was actually donated to us, wasn't it?
It was essentially, yes, by some friends of ours that are working closely with us. Do you want me to talk more about that?
Please, go ahead.
Are you finished with your shout-outs?
Yes, go ahead. No, please,
I want to quickly actually apologize for my bullying of John Beerley a while back when he admitted he towed the wet sprocket as a fan.
And mine when I thought he was in a closet.
It was out of order, and I should apologize for it because I am a man enough to admit when I was wrong. So I apologize for bullying him.
I literally did record the show from inside of a utility closet one week at work.
That is actually quite admirable.
It was the quietest place I could
bullying.
find.
That does not deserve bullying. But March 7th, March 8th, in support of a charity, I will be making an appearance along with several of the great guests from the combat radio side of things, including Jaws screenwriter Carl Gottlieb, Oscar-nominated production designer Joe Alves of Close Encounters and Escape from New York, Carolyn Hennessy of True Blood, some of the Colonial Marines of Aliens, including Rico Ross, a past guest here, at Tulare Sci-Fi Con, Tulare Sci-Fi Con, rather, Tulare, 90 minutes north of Los Angeles, March 7th and 8th, and it is a fantastic convention, perhaps my favorite of all the appearances. It's just it's a convention in Mayberry, basically. Well worth going to and being a part of it. I encourage everyone to be a part of that because it's going to be pretty fun.
Yeah, so thank you to you guys for you actually donating 1 month's show.
Yes, Tulare, getting involved.
Thank you, Tulare. Thank you very much for that. And thank you to all of you that have donated this way. Thank you, Ethan, for bringing it together. And obviously, this week we have talked about bullying. We're going to do it again next week. We will actually, want to hear from you. If you want to join us and discuss this topic, we'll be very happy to hear it from you. In closing, our closing quote is from Eleanor Roosevelt, or Roosevelt, depending on where you're from. No one can make you feel inferior without your consent. This is Adrian Paul and Ethan Dettenmaier. We'll talk to you again next week.
You're listening to Peace Fund Radio with Ethan Dettenmaier and Adrian Paul, right here on LA Talk Radio.